You got to be freaking kidding me. I cannot believe that the 49ers just lost to the Vikings. Couldn't do anything right all night, it seemed. They finally get a break, and that's how the game ends. Thoroughly, thoroughly disappointing. I don't know where this team goes from here. All I know is they got the Bengals right around the corner coming off of a bye week. They might go into the bye week on a 3-game skid. This team right now is very disappointing. Gosh, dude, I don't even. I'm frustrated, Sunil. Very, very frustrated with the way that game ended, with the way that whole game went, to be frank. But we got a lot to talk about. We'll do it next. I don't even have the energy to do the intro. I don't care. I don't care, Sunil. I don't care. Let's talk about this game. Let's talk about the first things first. The 49ers just lost to the Vikings. Let's talk about how atrocious this defense was all game long. All game long. The Vikings came in early. They were able to run the ball. The second half, they did a good job stopping the run. The Vikings, without Addison, without Jefferson, for a good drive or two, was still able to move the ball. I don't know what's going on, man. What is the issue with this defense, Sunil?
I mean, it's a defense that's predicated on a pass rush, and there is none. And it's something that, I know PFF has these, pressures, and the 49ers have been kind of hanging their hat on the pressures. And look, I don't think that numbers always paint the picture as far as whether especially on defense, when players are playing the way that they should be playing or not. Bosa might not be having the sack numbers, but I still think he's extremely disruptive. Even though the stats might not be showing it on a stat sheet, but there was, Kirk Cousins was looking like not even a top 10 quarterback, Jesse, a top 5 quarterback. The way that he was getting the ball out quick, it seemed like there was receivers running open all over the place. He was moving in the pocket. I don't even think he got sacked this game. I don't remember a sack that he had, maybe one. But look, Jesse, when Steve Wilkes was brought in as a defensive coordinator, you were extremely excited. I don't think I was as excited. And the reason why I wasn't excited is because I looked back at his defenses when he was a coach, and they weren't good. Right. And I think people would play, okay, well, he hasn't had the type of talent and all of these types of things. But there were some mismanaged calls on the defensive side of the ball that were just atrocious. It's specifically the last play of the second half, where they're down, but there's 16 seconds left. Minnesota has 0 timeouts, and you call all-out blitz with no safety help. Like, the whole point is to keep them out of making a big play, and you put them in a position to make a big play. And look, Ward made the jump. That could have been an interception. And look, maybe we're not talking about it, but obviously it turned out to be not an interception, and there was nobody behind Ward to save that play. And you look at the first half, I remember tweeting, I was like, why are we calling so much zone? And they were just getting pieced up by it. The middle was wide open all the time. Now, do we blame that only on Wilkes? Obviously, the players have to perform and execute, but we don't know how good Wilkes is yet, because the offense has been putting the defense in situations where they were playing with points on the board. So you play a different type of offense. These last 2 games, the defense has had to play to keep the team in the game. And last season, there was no issues with that, Jesse. This season, it's only been a couple games, and I don't think you could put the Cleveland Browns game on the defense. But this game, you definitely can. Over 450 yards of offense. That's insane. And against the team that, like you mentioned, don't have a lot of stars. Addison's a rookie, And they're making him Addison look like he was another incarnation of Justin Jefferson. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. Obviously, this doesn't look like a team that is Super Bowl contention, but it's also week 7, Jesse. And we've seen this team struggle in the first half of the season in previous years and still figure it out after the bye week and look really, really good afterwards. I think the real question, Jesse, and I'll pass it to you, is how much of this is fixable? How much of this is just in the 49ers DNA that is just a weakness that Kyle Shanahan and the coaching staff have to hide because there's no overcoming it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I wish I knew the answer to it. I mean, I think the season will tell the truth over time. And you're right. I was excited about Wilkes, and a lot of that was talking to some of the Panthers guys that I trust. You know, they really talked him up, talked about how he was a leader, and I saw it during training camp. He did a good job on the field. He really was coaching in the moment a ton. But this defense ain't it. I mean, they play soft coverage behind a 4-man pass rush, and they just can't get home. And then when you decide to blitz, it's in the worst time, like right before the half. Now, I will say this, and I heard this a lot at halftime as well in Twitter Spaces, but I didn't see it as a cover 0. I actually saw Gibson back in coverage. Fred Warner dropped underneath. Gibson bit on a crossing route, and then they threw it over the top, and that was it. But it still wasn't a good plan. I mean, dropping 4 in coverage was not ideal. It's okay to blitz in that scenario if you send 5, but you don't go almost all out near cover 0 in that moment when you haven't been blitzing all day. Like, what is the point of that? That's when you should have 2 deep over the top. Like,
Especially if you get the
all they
ball
had to
coming
do,
out of the first half, right?
right?
That's
All they
all
had to do
important.
was tackle. That was it. If you get a tackle there, that's it. That's the end of the half. It's over.
Right. Situational awareness has always been a weakness that we've put on Kyle Shanahan, but I don't know if that play you could put on Shanahan. Obviously, he's the head coach, but he's not making the defensive calls. But that's a Ward issue. That's a play call issue. That's an execution issue. But ultimately, look, I know there's a lot you can see in the comment section. People are angry, but you don't win the Super Bowl week 7. Right? There's a lot that we need to talk about. There's a lot that needs to be fixed. But if we talk, like when we were doing our beginning of the season, like what we thought the record was going to be, I don't think many people had it 5-2 going through week 7. Right? I think people had it a little bit worse than
5-2. I actually had us at 5-2.
Yeah. Perfect. So we're right.
The Cowboys and the Browns before the season started, and then
right. So it ended up being the Vikings instead of the Cowboys. So the sky isn't falling. You know what I mean? Like, we were much worse last season, and we still we're that. But there is some things that need to be worked on, and there's still a lot of time to work on it. So for everybody that's like, trying to jump off the deep end right now, we're not there yet. We're definitely not the best team in the NFC. I think the Eagles have that and the gap is pretty wide, I would say, right now. But that doesn't mean we can't catch up, because we still have a lot there that is left on the table. Let's just put it that way.
You said you don't win the Super Bowl in week 7, and I agree, but you can lose it. That might have been the bye week right there. These last 2 weeks might have been our bye week. We'll see how the season plays out. But I mean,
we do still play the Eagles.
We
do still play the Eagles.
That's true. But spoiler alert, I'm picking the Bengals to beat the 49ers this next week. Like, I just am. That's the first time this season I'm going to pick against the 49ers. So, I mean, I don't feel confident in this team at all. And they couldn't stop a team without Jefferson. Now you got one of the best receiving cores in the league coming to town. Like, I don't know. And anybody who said Kirk Cousins wasn't a good quarterback, okay. Kirk Cousins did work today. Absolutely worked the 49ers up and down that field all day long. All right, before we get to the offense, and I know a lot of you want to talk about it, but let's get to these super chats. There's a ton. We'll get through as many as I can, and then we'll go to the next topic. Joey Mellon simply says ridiculous. Agree. Dark Knight says Trey Lance somewhere laughing. Yeah, well, I don't know that Trey Lance does anything this year with this team either. And I love Trey Lance, but now trading him and crowning your future, that might be silly. That might look a little silly in this moment, but I don't know that he would have done any more this year with this team. Jason Lutz says Wilkes needs to go. His D doesn't work with the wide 9. Okay, good point. Wide 9 and Wilkes may not work. Junior Smith says here's 99 cents. 4th and Goal says, I'm a big Brock believer, but man, this dude ain't looking much different than Jimmy G these last 2 weeks. Steve Wilkes also ain't it. Trash all the way around. Well, much like I wasn't willing to just put it on Moody last week, I'm not putting it on Purdy, but much like, the 49ers offense put Moody in a position to go win the game, as bad as it looked, Purdy had 2 shots at it, and he threw a pick on both possessions. So appreciate the $1.99. I closed it out before I could get to it. I apologize. All Niner says, why did Steve Wilkes call a cover 0 blitz on 3rd down with less than 30 seconds left in the half? I didn't see it as a cover 0. Like I said, I saw that Gibson was back in coverage. He bit on a crossing route. I mean, maybe he was in man coverage, but that's just what my naked eye saw. I didn't see it as cover 0, but either way, not a good decision to blitz, in my opinion. I agree. Cryptic says, we paid this D line so that we can attack with 4. Why Wilkes kept blitzing 5 and 6 constantly was beyond me. Also, the offense went flat nearing clutch time. I mean, what do you do though? The front 4 is supposed to get home. This is what, the most expensive D line in football at this point, and they can't even get home right now at all. Like as bad as Wilkes' decision making has been and questionable, this defensive line can't get home. They can't, and that's not acceptable when you've got the defensive player of the year who's making more money than anybody else in the league. You go and you pay big for Hargrave. You got Armstead getting paid big money. Like, it's just not acceptable. They have to be able to find a way to get home. They have to. 808 Niner says Wilkes is dumb. Why did he blitz at the end of the half? Can't stop the run or rush the passer. And Purdy picks were like Jimmy G. Eagles gonna kill us. Ooh, well, we'll find out about that. Carson Taylor says Steve Wilkes is horrible. Everyone's out of position. They're missing hella tackles too. You noticing that? Like they can't wrap it all, Sunil. Like they're missing tons of tackles all over the place. It's crazy.
Look, there wasn't this. The linebacking core, I think, had a rough night in coverage. I think that the corners, obviously, look, Mooney Ward is supposed to be our best corner. Kirk Cousins had no fear of Mooney Ward. He threw it to Mooney Ward every single time, and you're thinking you're supposed to test the opposite side of Mooney Ward, but nah, they put Addison up against Mooney Ward, and more times than not, Addison won that battle. And so, look, I mean, it's not people want to put it on Brock Purdy, and yes, Brock Purdy wasn't part of the solution; he was part of the problem as well. But I'm not looking at beating Minnesota. I'm looking at how this team is going to translate to winning a Super Bowl. And Brock Purdy could play lights out. If the defense is giving up what the defense gave up, this team isn't a Super Bowl caliber team. And ultimately right now, Jordan Addison is not the best receiver that this team is going to have to go up against to win a Super Bowl. And if Mooney Ward can't handle that, then, we don't have a shot no matter how good Brock Purdy plays.
Bro, I would argue they haven't played an elite receiver yet. They got one coming to town next week, so better buckle those chin straps. Jamaica Boy says, before the game, I thought we needed a linebacker to set the edge. Now we need a shutdown corner. I've seen enough. And again, I ask you, Jesse, what are we paying 7 for? Right? It feels like that right now. Purdy equals Mullins, same injury too. I don't know about that, but, I don't know. It's not looking good right now. Dazza says, so people still taking Purdy over Cousins? That was never should have been the case. That was an awful take if it was. And I know that was being said for sure. Ivan Tina says, stop with Bosa excuses. Straight up trash. I don't know. Trash. Okay.
Yeah,
couldn't see it. D-line. Yeah, man. What is it with players on this team getting paid, by the way, and just fallen off of a cliff completely? Like Bosa's had some good moments and he's been in the backfield quite a bit, but dude, this is not what you're paid to do right now. Like, you gotta get home. I think his he has like 2.5 sacks, and 2 of them were off of free rushes with nobody in his way. Like, that's not ideal.
Look, I gotta say something. And look, obviously I'm a big Shanahan fan, and
I know you are.
I don't think that there's many coaches that are better than him. Obviously, he hasn't won a Super Bowl, so he can't be talked about as the best coach. And I'd probably give that to Andy Reid anyways. But this team has been different since the Cowboys win. And there has been a lot of mental mistakes. There has been a lot of players not playing the way that they looked against Dallas. And I wonder if inside the locker room, even though in the media they're saying all the right things, there might have been, hey, we can just run through all of these teams, even though they're saying we know just one game at a time, all this kind of stuff. This team hasn't looked dominant since that Cowboys game. And this game, Jesse, from start to finish, this team didn't look ready. Even though, on defense, they couldn't stop the run. They got the turnover on the third play of the game. But after that, like, this team didn't look ready. And ultimately, you have to put that on the coaching staff, whether it's Kyle Shanahan, it's Wilk, it's the whole group. And they need to regroup, because I agree. Cincinnati's playing is a desperate team right now. And they're playing because they know if they lose they might not make the playoffs. It's a make or break game for them as well. So the team has to figure it out, and they have to get ready. And it starts with Kyle Shanahan. He has to be better.
Yeah, he definitely does. He definitely does, man.
And Jesse, this is what really gets me about the offense. George Kittle had a great game, but Brandon Ayuk is the heart of this receiving game. And he got 0 touches. The ball didn't go to him, it seemed like, in the whole second half.
Yeah, no, I think it should go. I don't remember many, if any, going his way.
The first half it was, and they were driving up and down the field. I get it. Other than CMC, the ball should be in Brandon Ayuk's hands. You need to force feed that guy. He is that type of receiver, especially when Debo's not out. I love that Kittle got, some run and all that kind of stuff. But in this type of game, I'm expecting Ayuk to get 10 targets. And I don't think he was anywhere close to that. And he was non-existent in the second half. And I think Kyle Shanahan needed to force the ball, because he is a game breaker, just like CMC is.
Javonte Bolden says still had 2 chances to score and didn't. Yeah, I mean, bottom line is that's an accurate statement. Everybody said that Purdy put him in a position to win last week. Well, as bad as it was, he was in position to win this week and didn't get it done. Game time, Vikes only had 8 out, and Kyle let it go to 2.
That was on the last, the before the 2-minute warning in the first half.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah,
that's on Purdy too. Look, Purdy got to go. Purdy has to see that and hike the ball. Like, I agree. You could that could have been a touchdown right there.
They could have had a touchdown.
Somebody would have gotten open.
I agree. Yep, absolutely. Somebody should have seen that. Curtis Higgins says 400 yards, but just 22 points on offense. Still have to score more. Yeah. Oh no, don't worry. We're not just blaming the defense, my guy. We are not just blaming the defense. In fact, let's just get into it. The offense wasn't good either. The offense also wasn't good. CMC the last 2 weeks averaged 3.9 yards, I believe, a carry last week. This week was around 2.8. I think he finished around 3 yards a carry this week as well. Now, I know that he went out with the injury last week. He's not running the ball effectively the last couple weeks, the last 6 quarters that he's played. He's been great in the pass game, but he hasn't been running the ball effectively. And then again, let's talk about blunders. Kyle, all week long, we talked about how CMC should probably sit out and rest, and you still have enough to go get it done. You should. If Purdy's who everybody thought he is, then you have enough to go get it done without CMC in this game. Not only do you play him, but he played every offensive snap in this game. How is that even excusable at all? And then you lost to boot? Wow. I mean,
look,
He is the main focus on this offense. He is your offense right now. And he's not going to make it to the end of the season. You cannot do that to him. What the hell's going on, man?
Look, Jesse, this game wouldn't even be competitive if he wasn't out there every single play. That's just the truth of the situation. But we got to put something on CMC as well, because this is the second time in the red zone he's lost a fumble. He's fumbled the ball. I think they said 3 times in the last 5 games or something like that, but lost 2. He's too good. Look, JP Mason is not on the field as much as we think he should because of his fumbling issues. CMC can't be fumbling the ball. That's just giving up points.
The thing is JP Mason's never fumbled in a game.
That's it. That's funny. That's what's wild. Elijah Mitchell, I don't think has ever fumbled since high school. You know what I mean? And he doesn't see the ball. So I agree. But Kyle Shanahan is seeing something in practice. One thing, I know a lot of people have a lot of hate about Kyle Shanahan, but I think he makes the right personnel decisions. And if he's playing CMC out there every single play, Jesse, there's a reason. He knows that he doesn't want it that way. He knows that CMC is very, very important. But without Debo there, without Ray, they tried to make Ray into that Debo route. They're not explosive without CMC there, at least being that threat out of the backfield. And unfortunately, none of the other running backs have stepped up to be that type of threat. And we saw it. CMC scored, that touchdown that at the end of the first half, or in the second half, that got the game close off of a play out of the backfield. And I don't think any of the other running backs do that. So you got to keep them on there just to be the threat, because I don't think defenses are afraid of anybody like they're afraid of CMC on this offense.
I don't disagree with that, but man, Kyle Shanahan's offense was scoring just 18 points a game last year before CMC came. Okay. CMC had been undefeated in games that he finished in the regular season, started and finished in the regular season up until today. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This offense had been scoring 30 at will up until the last 2 weeks. Kyle has to figure out how to manufacture offense without CMC on the field. He just does. He does. Like you can't rely on him being this healthy. You can't rely on him playing every single down. You just can't do it. You got to figure out a way to manufacture points.
And they have the answer.
If you're that guy, you have to be able to.
And they have the answer. And the answer is Ayuk. And for some reason, he just wasn't on the field. Like, Ayuk could get open against any cornerback in the league. There's no question about it. It seems like him and Purdy have a lot of chemistry. For some reason, Purdy was going to Jennings more, going to Kittle more, and I just think you force feed Ayuk, man. You force feed Ayuk. I think this game could have been different.
I mean, for as bad as the defense has been, one thing they have done is given the offense some good field position on a couple turnovers the last 2 weeks. 3 turnovers the defense has forced. All 3 of them allowed the 49ers offense to start in the opposing team's territory. And on those 3 drives, the 49ers came away with 7 points. And that was because one of them was a 1-play drive from the 8-yard line. JP Mason ran it in for a touchdown. The other 2 drives over the last 2 weeks where they started inside the opponent's territory based off of gifts from the defense, they missed a field goal after losing 11 yards, starting in great field position, losing 11 yards, and then missed a field goal, and then CMC fumbled. Like, this offense is not getting it done either. They're not scoring. Like, they're good between the 20s, but they haven't been good the last couple weeks inside the opponent's territory. Like, once they get in deep into an opponent's territory, they're not scoring the way that they need to be scoring either. I mean, that's a little bit worrisome also.
And I think they're trying to maybe open up the playbook a little too much. And possibly, look, at the end of the day, they're trying to figure out, what they can and can't do. And the only way you could do that is through games, Jesse. But I imagine once these games become more and more kind of do or die, I think we get more and more into the dink and dunk and less of just allowing Brock Purdy to throw the ball down the field. Because ultimately, that's where they've gotten into a little bit of trouble, is kind of just letting Brock cook instead of the run, the short receiver kind of screens, the slants, all that kind of stuff. You didn't see a lot of that right now. Maybe that's because Debo's not there, but I still think you run that with Ayuk. I still think you could, run that with CMC out of the backfield. Ray, they tried to against Cleveland, and I don't think he looked that great. But you could still manufacture those, underneath routes and let these guys use their ability in the open
What
field
about
to
Bell
make plays.
too? Bell's kind of that guy.
Ronnie Bell hasn't been there, and ultimately, look, for how bad this game was, the team still was in position to win, just like they were in position to win against Cleveland. So I know we're talking about the sky is falling and all that kind of stuff, but we're talking about fixing the play here or there that would have made these games easy wins instead of close losses. And I'd rather be in that position than just this team just looks all kind of disheveled and is getting blown out and all that kind of stuff. At least they're not in that position right now, Jesse. But with the defense playing as bad as they were, with the offense not as good as they are, we still had opportunities to win. And I think that's the silver lining that we need to look at, to know that, hey, this team is not as terrible as this game ended up being. But to win a Super Bowl, you better be pretty damn consistent, and that consistency needs to get there.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, let's just go to Purdy directly, straight from the offense. We talked about, how bad the offense looked in general. We talked about CMC and not being able to run effectively. We talked about some of the play calling. Now let's just talk about Purdy directly. I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row, and he looked really good, man. Like, up until those final 2 drives, he actually looked good. He was really making some good throws, taking some shots, great ball placement. Like, it looked good. And then it didn't. Last 2 drives, I mean, those were about as Jimmy-esque as they could have been. Both those, identical. I mean, those were Jimmy picks, and I think, to do it with the game on the line and having 2 chances at it, I mean, that's concerning, man. It really is. And he didn't almost throw a pick. He almost threw a pick last week in the game-winning drive situation, but this week, the first throw, I mean, it wasn't almost a pick, but that was a horrible decision throwing it over the middle to Kittle. Like, he's telegraphing his throws. Teams are starting to figure it out. Like, his arm is such where he has to throw with such anticipation. That anticipation, and it's funny because I was talking to Coach about this a couple weeks ago. I said his greatest strength can become his greatest weakness if teams start to figure it out. Because he throws with such anticipation, if a receiver falls down in a route, if a receiver can't get there, if there's any hitch or anything, you're starting to see where it can become an issue. And by all means, it was an issue in those final 2 drives.
Sure. And I was just going to say, I mean, you said it, you hit the nail on the head. I think Troy Aikman did a great job about talking about it on the telecast, where he said, look, Brock Purdy's strength, just like you said, is also can be a weakness because it's all about timing. And anytime that timing is off, it looks bad. And Brock Purdy is anticipating throws without necessarily reading the play, if that makes any type of sense. And he threw 2 balls up that possibly he thought the route was supposed to go there. I don't know if he's missing the throw, quote unquote. He's throwing to where he thinks that play is going to turn out, but obviously there was a miscalculation, whether it's the receiver didn't run the right route or the timing was off, like you mentioned. But they look really bad because it ends up being thrown right to a defender with no receiver around them. And look, once again, man, Brock Purdy is still a young quarterback. It's only his 12th start in the regular season. So I think if we put it in that perspective, Jesse, these mistakes are still not necessarily warranted, but expected. If this is still, if you consider it like his first full year of playing with 12 games. So the main thing is he looked very, very good. Like Nick Wright from FS1 was tweeting throughout the game, and he has this thing where it's like he's like, with Brock Purdy, the plays that you go wow and the plays that you go yikes. And in the first half, he had 2 wow plays and 1 yikes throw, right? The one yikes throw was the one to George Kittle, obviously, that was the hospital ball. And then he made a nice throw and then that running play. So I think for everybody that's like, Brock Purdy's trash, we need to throw him. Look, he's not perfect. I don't think he's necessarily this force multiplier. So when it comes time to extend him or give him a contract, that's when we discuss that. But right now, with the team that's around him, he is good enough for this team to beat any team. However, it's not like this huge like error. Like there's not a lot of room for error. If he's throwing 2 interceptions, this team isn't going to win. So he just needs to get better, and he needs to see this. And I just think that for everything that I'm seeing and for how bad we feel right now on a 2-game losing streak, Jesse, this team still is showing flashes of how great they could be even in these losses, is what I'm trying to say. So we just need a couple plays here and there to go bounce our way. And that's just kind of what the game has been.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that Purdy, with all these weapons around him, if healthy, but that's a big if. Like, you can't guarantee health, and if everybody's healthy, I think he can make this offense tick. Because
can I tell you where I'm really worried?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I've taken a lot of L's this season. I took an L on Moody, right? And I'm gonna take an L on this because Colton McKivitz is a problem. And I've been a guy who's like, he could be all right, but he can't. And he's going to give up a sack. He's going to give up some pressure that the right side is an issue. He can't stop there. He can't go clean sheet against these elite pass rushers. And I don't know how you fix that because there's nobody coming that's going to be better, right? You can't like trade for a really good right tackle. Maybe who's the guy that's injured? Is it Lyle Collins? Lyle Collins. I mean, maybe you bring him in just to see, some kind of depth, at least have another option. But McKivitz is an issue. And Jalen Moore actually played well. You didn't hear his name at all. And so, with Trent Williams gone, I don't know can Jalen Moore play right tackle? I don't know, but Cole McKivitz is an issue, man. And that could be a problem moving forward.
Yeah, it most certainly can. Bringing it back to Purdy, I do think if everything is right, but then this is the other thing. This team has to play from ahead. They have to, this is not a team that can play from behind and go down and win games, needing touchdown drives with no timeouts and under a minute. Like, that's not what this team is predicated to do. So they're going to have to play from ahead, and doing that all the way through the playoffs is not an easy task. So a lot of things are going to have to go right in order for this team to eventually win a Super Bowl this year. If they're going to get back on the right track, I think really what it comes down to is we're starting to see things that a lot of people didn't believe were there until their eyes were telling it to them. And these were the things that I was always concerned about. And I got railroaded every time he played well. You don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot and all these other things. But this is exactly what I was worried about. This is why I said I'm not ready to say he's a franchise quarterback, because this is kind of what I always thought was possible when the weapons weren't there. So we're just starting to see it a little bit. Again, it doesn't mean that this is who he is consistently. I'm not saying he's as bad as those final 2 drives or as bad as he was last week against Cleveland. Like, I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but he's just not. To me, I just don't see franchise quarterback. And a lot's going to have to change in order because the thing is I didn't see franchise quarterback when it was going well. So I definitely don't see it when it's not going well. And so, yeah, let's hope they can win a Super Bowl with him on the inexpensive contract. But a lot's going to have to change in order for me to really, especially now, change my mind on him being that franchise caliber quarterback.
Yeah, and the thing about it, we keep talking about franchise quarterback. We don't have to make that decision for another 2 years, right? That only hurts us. That only hurts us if we do what New York did with Daniel Jones and give him franchise quarterback money when he's clearly not a franchise quarterback. And we could discuss that in 2 years. But as for right now, I think the biggest issue is there's so many important positions that we're trusting with really young, inexperienced players. Quarterback with Brock Purdy. Why did we lose the last game? There was a lot of reasons, but ultimately, if you want to just put it on one play, a rookie kicker that can't make a 41-yard kick when the pressure's on, like. So Brock Purdy, throwing inopportune interceptions at the end of game. Like, these are young players that are making these type of mistakes. On the flip side, you have a Kirk Cousins who, even though he's depleted of talent, he's, the pocket's crumbling all around him. He's making the right throw. He's making the right play. He's making the right decisions and all that kind of stuff. So can this stuff be fixed as the season goes on? The answer is yes, but it also can bite you in the butt, because ultimately we don't know what these players are or aren't in kicker like Jake Moody, in a quarterback like Brock Purdy. Like, this is the first time we've seen him have to play from behind in the last 2 games. I think against Cleveland, he did enough to help that team win, even though he played terrible most of that game. At least in that last drive, he showed. At least he threw the ball to Brandon Ayuk, who ultimately made the play that got them into, right? That's not really Purdy, but he got the ball to the right guy, and Brandon Ayuk did everything else. But that was Jake Moody missing that. Otherwise, we're 6-1. We're 6-0 going into this week, right? And in this game, ultimately, it was a young signal caller that ultimately threw the ball in the wrong place on the last 2 pivotal drives, where if we got into scoring position and kick field goals in those 2 plays, where we win by 1, right? So that, I think, is where it's a little bit scary, Jesse, is that important positions are with very inexperienced players.
Bingo. That's all I was thinking about the whole time you were saying that. It was, for a win now team to put the 2 players that score the most points on a team are as young as they are and essentially rookies. Boy, that sure was ballsy, and it's not paying off for him right now at all. It's not paying off for him. I'll tell you what is starting to happen, though. That whole Cousins conversation just got about as loud as it could be going into next year. And listen, I'm not even saying going into next year. If Cousins is willing to waive his no trade clause, we're talking about all the trades that are available. I don't know that Shanahan wouldn't look into it. I don't know that he wouldn't look into it. They can afford it. You get Cousins on this team, I think you can really go win a Super Bowl this year, and maybe they still can with Purdy, but I wouldn't put it past the 49ers to sniff around at all. And John Lynch was talking to their GM before the game, and everybody was talking about Danielle Hunter. Maybe that conversation was around Kirk Cousins. Just maybe. Who knows? But I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility that he might become a Niner before the trade deadline. I'm just saying, there's a small chance there. I wouldn't be shocked.
I mean, that would be, I think, disastrous. Like, if you have to bring in a quarterback mid-season to help you win a Super Bowl, I don't think that's ever happened.
If they win a Super Bowl, though, if that's what gets them over the top. Let me ask you this. Do you think this team right now with Purdy or Kirk Cousins has a better chance to win a Super Bowl? It's Kirk Cousins. Stop.
I would say Kirk Cousins, but ultimately, it puts us back in that. It
shouldn't have taken you that long.
Well, no, because what I'm saying, with this team, yes, but ultimately, I'm thinking about long term as well, right? Because that means that play. But does Kirk Cousins give this team the ability to win a Super Bowl if the defense is playing the way that it is? I don't think Kirk Cousins is that better that he's going to be able to mask this terrible, the way the defense played right now, right? So there's a lot of issues on here. Is Kirk Cousins going to be able to win this game if Jake Moody is missing, game-winning kicks and stuff like that? No, it's not. Yes.
Let's trade the quarterbacks tonight. You think the 49ers lose that game? Because I don't.
Yeah,
if we
probably
trade quarterbacks
not
tonight, I don't think they lose that game.
Probably not. But it's not like Kirk Cousins hasn't thrown inopportune interceptions either, right? So it's
for sure, he's not perfect.
Yeah. So I mean, in this game, if you switch quarterbacks, this game is different. But there's been games where I think Brock Purdy would have outplayed Kirk Cousins as well. Now, what ultimately, like I said, look, we're talking a lot of hypotheticals. What does this team need to change right now? Ultimately, look, for all the weapons that have been lost on the offensive side, the defense hasn't lost any weapons, Jesse. So we need to be like, why is this defense that really has only lost one player, I would say, of major importance, which is Jimmy Ward from this like core of this defense or whatnot. Brought in, I think, an even better interior D lineman in Javon Hargrave, who has been playing well. Why is this defense not performing the way day in, day out that dominant defense from the past few years are? What's the biggest change? And that's Wilkes. And ultimately, we have to start holding him, I think, a little bit more accountable. You know, a guy calling the game from up in the press box, that's different. The choices that he's making are much different. I don't know. I think that ultimately, if the defense isn't going to be as dominant as they've been in the past, then, you know, I don't think this team is a Super Bowl caliber team. I don't think they beat the Eagles. It doesn't matter who's the quarterback, unless it's Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson.
These comments right here drive me so insane. So insane. You the whole quarterbacks, the QB wins thing is the biggest joke ever. It's awful. Awful. Oh, the quarterback's the reason that they win. Remember, you know what's funny, because I tweeted it out today. They had the graphic. Remember the graphic they always used to show with Jimmy G, Kyle Shanahan with Jimmy G and without Jimmy G. Now it's funny. That same graphic is pulled up today. But guess Jimmy what it is? Now it includes Jimmy G in the losing side of things and Brock Purdy, you know, in the winning side of that. With Brock Purdy, he's this. It's like, no, man, it's not. It's not just a quarterback. The quarterback is the most important position in football, but a quarterback is not the only reason that you win and lose. Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy right now. And if you can't see that, man, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. It was that way coming into the season. It's that way now. And Purdy may eventually get there, and Cousins is getting older. But Kirk Cousins has put up around 8 straight seasons in a row in the NFL. All right. We've seen a good season from Purdy-ish in his career. It's not enough yet. It's way too early. Kirk Cousins is a damn good quarterback. Damn good quarterback. I mean, it's clear. It's
you know what you got. Obvious. That's the thing. What it is like. Look, there's so many question marks right now at important positions. Right, Brock Purdy is a question mark. Are we gonna we know what? You know, when it's a good Brock Purdy, yeah, this team could win under him. But then we didn't know what he's like in the top pressure situations where he needed to play from behind, right? So we've seen that in the last 2 games. And I think against Cleveland, he did enough. Obviously, against Minnesota, he didn't do enough. Jake Moody is a question mark. Can he, you know, handle the pressure, all that kind of stuff? Ultimately, if you're winning a Super Bowl, you can't have that many question marks. So, yeah, Kirk Cousins is less of a question mark than Brock Purdy. So I understand that point, but I also don't think there's any chance that Kirk Cousins is on this team till the offseason.
Yeah,
so I don't think
you're probably right. You're probably right. But the point is that somehow, you know, everybody's got this, oh, Kirk Cousins can't do it in primetime. Well, guess what? Today was a primetime game. He played about as good as he could have. And they still could have lost that game. If Brock Purdy would have put together a drive in the final 2, they would have lost. And could anybody have looked at the Vikings and been like, the reason they lost today was because of Kirk Cousins? Nobody would have said that. Nobody with 2 eyes that watched that game could have put that loss on Kirk Cousins. Yet his primetime record, yeah, from a bunch of people that haven't seen it and don't know how those games went, they think he's not a clutch quarterback or not a good quarterback. Watching tonight tells you very, very different. Addison is cool, but he's a rookie. Addison went out and he was still doing his damn thing. Like, man, come on. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I can't. Anybody saying that Purdy is better than Cousins at this moment it's laughable. Marco Bravo said, yeah, go ahead.
Let's get back to being productive, though, my guy.
Golly, man.
Let's talk about
the Niners lost. Listen, the Niners lost, and I'm pissed. But takes like that is just, bro. I can't do it. Marco Bravo says the Niners looked like a joke, to be honest. TMC says trade Bosa for PS2. No, the contract's too much. Now you're going to take too big of a hit. Dazza says we paid Hargraves all that money to resurrect the 2019 D line, and we didn't even have 1 sack tonight. Facts. William Bennett says, looks like Wilkes ranking before.
Look at Wilkes' ranking.
Oh, look at, well, yeah. No, Sunil pointed it out way in the offseason. He pointed it out. Marco Bravo says, if we can't beat the Vikings, what makes you think we beat the Eagles? Hey, any given night, I mean, the Eagles lost to the Jets too. Like, this team fully healthy can still put it together, I think. But, man, it is not looking good. What you talking about, Willis, says Kyle on Kirk. I always knew. These guys high on Kirk. Perfect. Cost CG says Wilkes needs to step it up or pack it up. Yeah, I don't know. This may only be a one season thing. Hey, what's up, Pinelli? We were chatting a little bit in the text. Greg Pinelli says he ain't Jimmy G. Get Kirk on the plane home. Oh man, we were going back and forth for sure. Fat 420. Wow. Moody says Moody needs to get better fast. I feel like he makes the kicks. We have a shot at kicking a game winner. So if he had made the other kick, you're saying that they would have, instead of needing.
I mean, it's such a momentum changer for sure. Missing a field goal, you put the other team in good field position. You take points off the board. And look, I'm one that takes the biggest L on Moody. I'm never going to be excited about a third-round Michigan pick from the 49ers ever again. Ambry Thomas and Jake Moody both make me look like fools. But I thought that his strength on leg was going to be a game changer and change what the 49ers are able to do. However, he's not reliable. And ultimately, can he be? I don't know. It's just another question mark that makes you uneasy. It's only faith at this point, right? You can't develop a kicker. I think that they were talking about it on the telecast as well, Jesse. Is like, even Kyle Shanahan's like, I don't know what to do with the kicker. How do you make a kicker better? How do you put him in a better situation? Like, you can't develop a kicker. They either make the kick or they don't. There's no like coaching through it at that point. So yeah, I mean, I think the reason why all of us are a little bit uneasy is Brock Purdy's a question mark, Jake Moody's a question mark, Steve Wilkes is a question mark. There's a lot of question marks right now, and we don't know where really we stand at this point. I guess the benefit is we're only 7 games in, still a lot more season to figure it all out, and ultimately we just need to be really, really good come playoff time.
Gray Fox says Burrow and Chase are going to put 50 on us next Sunday. Yeah, they got less than a week to fit, and this is what sucks. It's a short week. I know you're at home, but you got a team coming off of a bye. Burrow's getting healthier, man. I'm not liking it. Not liking it. But if the 49ers can win going into the bye week, we'll feel a lot better. So let's hope they can get a win. Like, that's what's great about this game is you get to right your wrongs the very next week. If the 49ers go and beat the Bengals next week, we feel a lot better going into the bye week. If they lose, we're in full panic mode.
Short week, though.
It is, but that's where we're at. Full panic.
And they're coming off a bye.
And they're coming off a bye. I know they are. Ken W says is Bosa out of shape. He doesn't look like he did last season, got paid, and now he's looking soft. We get Hargrave, and now the line looks worse. How, Sway? Vinyl Works says, I thought we got rid of Jimmy G over his dumb interceptions, and Brock Purdy does the same thing. I'm definitely not a BP fan, and he's a system quarterback no matter what anyone says. Okay. Moody, pissed off brother Bob. Purdy, Moody, and defense trash. Pathetic. Wilkes equals ish. Okay. Anthony Cook says, can't remember who said it, but don't like looking down the field on throws now. But don't like looking down.
We used to not be afraid when Purdy stepped back.
Oh, bro. We all said it. No, trust me. I said it. Like, oh, I felt good when the ball's released. Not now. It's Seamus. Need aftercare tonight. How do we out-Vike the Vikes? I don't even know. Keith Murphy, the unbeaten, says, how many double moves did Mooney bite on? We don't have a number 1 corner on this team. We have 2 number 2s, is the way that I see it. 2 very good number 2s, but no number 1. Deshaun DeVoe says, Cousins to the Niners in 2024. I'm tired of Kyle not having his guy. See, this is the thing, right? Again, we get mad when people have their takes about quarterbacks, but nobody gets mad at the 49ers. They've now told you on 3 separate occasions in the Kyle Shanahan era that they feel like they have a franchise quarterback. When do they get held accountable, right? They paid a ton of money to Jimmy Garoppolo. That was them saying that they had a franchise guy. They traded everything under the sun for Trey. That was them saying they thought they had found a franchise guy. Then they moved mountains to get rid of everybody and clear the path for Brock Purdy. That's them telling you they have a franchise guy. If they pivot from Brock Purdy at any point in the next season-ish, at some point they got to be held accountable for it too, man. They're the ones that are getting paid, not us. Cles Lampero says coaching has nothing to do with the crappy tackling, and we better make a big trade for another D lineman. If I'm sorry, and Cles, I hope they make a trade, but this defensive line does not need any more big names. Like, they got to figure out how to get it done without it. They do. This secondary needs help also. But getting another big name and throwing them on the D line to try to solve the issue, man, there's something bigger going on. I don't think that's the way to do it. They have enough weapons on the D line. They should be able to get home. Shady Luke says D line didn't even touch Cousins. The pass D has been bad for a while. Just haven't played a good quarterback to expose it. Well, they did today. They played a damn good quarterback. Cryptic says elite quarterback and Burrow with healthy weapons. We're going to see if this team is real or just like the Cowboys. Oof. Keith says the only reason I put Shanahan as a top coach is because I see more people trying to run a version of Kyle's system than any other coach. Yeah, I mean, but right now, I mean, we talk about Mike McDaniels being on that tree as well, man. It's one of those things where, bro, they're kind of all getting their cookies taken. Basketball Can Niner says missing Trent was huge. Yeah, but there's no excuses, man. They got to win that game.
I don't think they missed Trent this game.
I don't think so. I think Jalen Moore did his thing. Yeah, I agree. 808 Niner says, Jesse, what makes you think that we can beat the Eagles? We couldn't stop a worse rushing team. Madison, forget the Eagles rush. How are we going to stop AJ Brown? Listen, all right. This team today doesn't have a chance against the Eagles. I understand that. But in week 12, who knows what these teams look like? Who knows where the injuries are at? I think a fully healthy 49er team can beat anybody in the league still. It's not going to be easy. I would pick the Eagles, but I still think that they can beat the Eagles. They can. I mean, again, the Eagles lost to the Jets just a week ago. They did. Keith Murphy, the unbeaten, says, looks like they made an adjustment on Ayuk at half. The fumble after the turnover is the second time CMC has fumbled after a turnover. That's true. The other one in the Dallas game was right after a turnover. Joey Mellon says, where's Mason? Mitchell had one carry, no Ayuk in the second half. Holy crap. All right, there's way too many of these. So here's what I'm going to do, Sunil. There's about 35 of those things. So you and I are going to finish our show. I appreciate you coming on last minute with me. If you need to dip, you can do that after we finish our topics, and then I'll finish up with the super chat. Sound good?
Yeah, and I got nowhere to be, man.
And if you want to stick around, you can.
I'd rather be depressed with the rest of the fan base, and hopefully give some positivity to all the negativity that's going on.
Fair. All right, let's talk about Jake Moody. Jake Moody missed game winner last week, couple kicks last week, missed a kick this week. I know we've touched on it. But the issue that I had with Moody going, first of all, the main issue I had was he was drafted too high. I thought he could still be a very good kicker, and maybe he will be. Maybe it's not even for the 49ers. I don't even know. At this point, like, they might replace him. But that being said, I did have an issue, and I've got a tweet somewhere. I have to find it, where I talked about those mid-range kicks, the 35 to 45. Those were an issue for him at times in college, and that's what we're seeing in the NFL. Do you think the 49ers have time to see it through? And we don't even have to talk about Robbie Gould, but should they be searching for another kicker this week, in your opinion?
I think the fact that Robbie Gould is sitting out there means they could take a little bit more time with Jake Moody. Because ultimately, you know what you have out of Robbie Gould. I think it's actually better for Robbie Gould to just be resting and relaxing and not putting any pressure on his leg, on his hips, and all that kind of stuff. Because ultimately, you can take all the time you need with Jake Moody, knowing that you could just call Robbie Gould and he could just come in and be your kicker for a playoff run, right? Because you know what you got out of Robbie Gould. I don't think he needs all of this whole season to get prepared and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think they could take some time with Moody because Robbie Gould isn't signed anywhere else.
I mean, I don't even know if Robbie Gould wants to play. football, let alone for the 49ers. I think that's the tough part. I mean, I think the assumption is that we think that Robbie Gould is there and available whenever we want. And maybe he is. That could be the case. But I think the 49ers know the answer to that question. I'm sure that the call has been made at some point. And
Right.
maybe that's why they never brought him back. I mean, we thought it was a money situation, but really it was maybe he just didn't want to play anymore. Or maybe he didn't want to play for the 49ers anymore for whatever
I
reason.
thought that he wanted to play. I thought it was a money thing, but I don't know. Who knows what reports are true or what reports are not? But let's say Robbie Gould isn't available, then yes, I think that you have to have a conversation with Moody to be like, look, we don't have time. This is a Super Bowl caliber. It's all the same things that you're saying to a rookie quarterback, the stuff that Trey Lance got, the stuff that Brock Purdy's getting right now. You got to say that to the kicker as well, because that's a make or break a deal as well. And like I said, I don't think, unlike a quarterback, you can't develop a kicker. I don't think you do. I think they either kick it or they don't. Now, one thing that's out there, Jesse, is it seems like just the skill level of kickers altogether has dropped significantly. Like, there's a lot of kickers that are missing kicks. It's not like where everybody is, 85, 90% like it seemed like back in the day. I don't know what has changed with the game, or if like just people aren't as focused on kicking anymore, but it's a tough position. So there's not necessarily you bring in somebody else and they're that much better than Jake Moody. It's all a crapshoot at this point, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you who has been good. A couple rookie kickers that were drafted or free agents, rookie free agents that were brought in after Moody. But I digress on that one. You can't win them all. As far as Jake Moody goes, yeah, they don't have time. They don't. If I'm picking up the phone, I'm calling Mason Crosby. What's he doing? You talk about a veteran who can kick in crappy weather. Green Bay Packers. Is he out there? Is he wanting to play?
He didn't look good the last time he was in the league. So I don't know if that's necessarily a solution. Sometimes just new doesn't necessarily mean better. And that's just unfortunately where we're at right now.
I mean, at the very least, even if you don't want to sign him, bring him in to push Moody.
Yeah.
Let him know that, hey, this thing's for real. Like, we're not just talking about it. We're showing you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't bad last year. Actually, no, he was not bad at all. Okay, this is him last year. This is Crosby last year. 10 of 10, 20 to 29. 8 of 8, 30 to 39. 6 of 7, 40 to 49. And he was 1 of 4, 50 plus. So, yeah, maybe not 50 plus, but all that other stuff, 50 and under, 49 and under, man, he was money last year. Missed one kick. Like, that ain't bad. That's one less than Moody's missed at under 50 so far this year. So he wasn't that bad. Listen, I'd bring him in at the very least and press on Jake Moody. All right, a lot of people are talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. That's the team that the NFC is looking up at right now, quite frankly. And it's crazy how so much has changed in the NFL. But here we are after, 7 weeks in the season. And the two teams from last year that made it to a Super Bowl, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, look like the two best teams again in the NFL. And the Eagles today just went and traded for a very good safety, 30-year-old Kevin Byard, who's a two-time first-team All-Pro. 2 years ago, he was a first-team All-Pro. He's a ball hawk, very, very good player. They basically got him for peanuts. They are better. Does this put pressure on the San Francisco 49ers to make a splash move before the deadline, in your opinion?
I mean, not only that, but I think the Eagles in general put pressure. Like, that defensive line is better. That offensive line is better. And now that you can see that they're making moves to even get better, even without this move, there should be pressure for the 49ers to, get whatever pieces they need to be ultimately confident with this roster. But obviously with that, you have to look at it and be like, we can't just hope these guys develop. If there's an opportunity to get a player that we feel like can make this team better, you have to go out there and get them.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, and there are players out there for sure that the 49ers potentially could have. I just think that they have to make. I mean, if there's any chance to get a right tackle anywhere to at least compete, they got to do that. Corner. I know that pass rusher was brought up earlier. They
I
gotta
think they
they
just
gotta
need to
make
give
moves.
Gregory more run, man. He seems to
Gregory's
like,
nice, man. He's
yeah,
been kind of
he
nice in
needs to
his short stint.
start. I think he
Yeah.
needs to start. Like, give him more opportunity.
What happened to Drake Jackson, man? I mean, he has been non-existent.
I think he was not. He was raw when they drafted him, right? He needed to develop more moves, and I just don't think he's developed the moves like to really be effective. Yeah, I mean, I do think that they still need some D line help. Maybe not a big name, but they just need somebody that could be consistent once again. And if I'm the 49ers, I am looking to bring in a D lineman and a cornerback. Those are the two positions that I think I need to shore up. And possibly my dark horse is a receiver, because I think there's going to be one out there. And ultimately, if Debo is going to be in and out of it, I want somebody else that's a playmaker alongside of Brandon Ayuk, because even though Jennings had a decent game, I think you need somebody else, and I think that there's going to be receivers available right now on teams that are looking to sell, I guess.
Yeah, most certainly. And I think there's going to be receivers that are out there as well. I don't know, man. There's a lot of little things that the 49ers need, and they're not going to be able to address them all. They're not. There's no perfect team in the NFL. There just isn't. It's not going to be perfect. It just has to get slightly better because they're
Let's
in
say
this game.
they could get a good D lineman or a good corner. Which one do you want them to select?
Corner, corner. I mean, again, like I said, I'm tired of throwing assets at this defensive line. I just am. They've got more than enough. I mean, you've got three of your highest paid guys are on that defensive line on the whole team. Three of your highest paid guys. You can't continue to throw assets there. You got to figure it out. And like I said, they've got two very good number two corners. They don't have a number one corner. So if they can go get a number one corner and Demo can move inside, I'd feel a lot better about that. A lot better.
Maybe move Mooney inside the way that he's been playing this last game.
If he's going against number twos, like but I mean, even then, he's so boomer bust. Even in the first week, I remember thinking like he had that pick, but really the pick came because the ball was underthrown. He was kind of cooked on the play. It's like, man, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know.
And unfortunately, I'm trying to think of, is there a number one corner that would even be available? And I don't even see that guy that necessarily comes in and is significantly better than Mooney or Demo. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Jalen Johnson, I guess, is like the one. You'd have to get him probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's probably the only realistic one out there. But what do you have to give up for him? A second round pick, something like that? I mean, it's not going to be cheap by any means.
Right.
So they got decisions to make. They definitely do. All right, let's try to fire through these super chats, bro. There's 41 of these things. Quinn Howard says, why no Jordan Mason as a change of pace? It's cool when CMC fumbles, but the doghouse when Mason does. But that's the thing, is Mason's never fumbled.
Only in practice.
It was only in practice, right? And then Purdy, remember when Purdy was throwing all those picks in practice? Everybody's like, oh, it's only practice. And, well, I mean, shouldn't he get the same grace? Like, he's never fumbled. He hasn't fumbled in a game. Alejandro Salas says, we got rid of Jimmy, but it's cool. We have Jimmy G 2.0. Dazza says, also CMC was averaging 3 yards a carry. Where was Mason? Quite frankly, Mason is the best runner they have in between the guards, for sure. I definitely believe that. And really, we can't construct any plays for Ray. Andy Reid seems to be able to create plays. It's a very good point. Beyond pissed off brother Bob says, this how you know brother Bob is pissed is he gets away from a $2 super chat. He has some things to say. Kyle doesn't believe in force feeding Ayuk like the Vikes did with Addison tonight. Kyle always does the draw them offsides ish right before the 2-minute warning and in the first and third and quarters. Why did we extend Kyle? Oh, jeez, man.
It's a good point, though, brother. You know, I'm a Kyle Shanahan fan, but I can't argue with you on that point.
It's so obvious. It's so
Yeah.
obvious. Talking Head says Purdy has no play from behind and without a couple starters, once and can't do it. 2 interceptions in a row. This is just the beginning. Duper T or Duper One. I thought that was a T. Why doesn't Kyle use Jordan Mason? CMC wasn't doing anything. And where's Ronnie Bell? Also, the defense was horrible, and so was Purdy. The whole thing, it was all bad.
There's a theme. I don't know if you're noticing this. That the fan base wants Jordan Mason to be integrated into the offense a little bit more. Just picking that up. I don't know if you are.
You know what's funny though is I swear, and this is what's frustrating, right? Whenever somebody has an opinion that people don't agree with, the first thing they say is, "Oh, are you the coach or are you the GM?" But, and this isn't just me. This is just like a social media thing, right? Like this isn't me venting, but it's funny because a big chunk of this fan base says a lot of things way before it happens. And then finally it's like, oh, Kyle sees the light 4 weeks later. You know what I mean? This player is going to get injured or this player is going to get injured if you keep doing that. But no, Kyle is getting paid, so he's smarter than everybody else. And then the injury happens. Or, hey, this player should get more snaps. They don't. And then when they finally do, it's like, oh, where was this 3-4 weeks ago? Like, it is pretty funny to me. I mean, this fan base is pretty damn smart. They pick up on a lot of things. I think y'all deserve some credit for some of your thoughts. Cryptic says, teams are taunting the Niners' boombox routine. It also seems that Debo's fighting on Twitter is motivating their opponents and showing they aren't scared. Nobody's scared of the 49ers right now. Junior Smith says this O-line didn't think that we would miss Williams.
I don't understand this whole Williams take. I don't know why that's been such
Williams. I mean, Trent doesn't play on the right side.
Nothing happened. Yeah.
Maybe he meant I thought we would miss Williams. I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Okay. Run game missed Trent tonight.
Yeah, that run game missed Trent tonight. Yeah, but they couldn't run the ball effectively last week until Mason got in. I mean, you look at CMC last week, he averaged like 3.9 yards per carry. So, and maybe you're right about that, but man, I just don't feel like CMC's been an effective runner in between the guards up the middle. Give Me Cash says beating the Cowboys was a Super Bowl. Ridiculous, bro. Jason Lutz says, what do we trade for at the deadline? Anyone to sell? I don't know if there's anyone to sell. There's some names. If you go to my community tab here on YouTube, I put up 3 players to look out for that are corners. Brother Bob says, sorry, I like Purdy, but he does not look elite. I like Purdy too. I mean, I think he's a good person. I think he's a good leader. I think he has some good qualities, but to crown him as a franchise quarterback was always a ridiculous thought this early. I'm not saying he can't be that, but it was always way too early. Rodman says, why do we always throw over the middle? Because those are the quarterbacks that we have. That's what their strengths are. I mean, it's just what it is. It's starting to get very readable. Black Suburban says these last 2 weeks, Brock earned and deserved the exact amount of money that he's getting paid. Shaking my head. I feel like he's already outplayed his contract. I get it. He hasn't looked good. Well, he looked good at times, but overall, like the result hasn't been good. I think Brock Purdy already outplayed his contract, though. I mean, he's not making any money. Brother Bob says, yeah, I should sit Purdy with another stinker like this. Sam Darnold is not the answer. Justin says, why is Ayuk when we need him most got the yips?
I think they just didn't throw it to him. Right. I think Ayuk just, for some reason, I think Brother Bob said it, like Kyle Shanahan should have just started force feeding the ball to Ayuk, and he chose not to, or Brock Purdy just, didn't go that way. But
the only throw I can remember being thrown his way is Purdy thought he was Patrick Mahomes, was rolling left, tried to throw right across his body, and just skipped it.
And it was
it
was like a yard short of him, and he still almost made a play on the ball, right? So
that's the only thing I remember. Keith says you can't leave 10 points on the board in the NFL. You definitely can't. I mean, these teams get paid too. Dub Alexander says we need Steve Wilkes at corner. Poggle says, what's the explanation for this 49ers defensive line? There's so many talented and expensive players there, but it looks like the 2017 D line, no pass rush. I agree. That's why I don't think we should pour any more assets over there. They got to figure it out, man. And here's the other thing. It's so vanilla. Do you notice this too? I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch the All-22 this week, and I'm going to count the amount of times that they did anything other than straight rush 4. They don't do any stunts. They don't, like, no twists, no stunts. It's literally like we line up and we rush. At least like with Saleh and D'Amico Ryans, they would do stunts and twists, and they'd move Bosa around, and they would have people. Like, I just don't see any creativity at all. Like, I understand that they should be able to get home with 4, but have some creativity.
And I also think I don't understand this soft zone that you play behind it. Like the whole, like it just negates the pass rush, because now the quarterbacks could get the ball out quick because there's space, right? And I think that's what's negating the pass rush, Jesse, is you're seeing these quarterbacks just get the ball out of their hands quick enough to where the pass rush doesn't get to them. If they at least played these corners more press man, then now there wouldn't be wide open receivers as much as there is right now. So I don't know if Steve Wilkes just doesn't trust these corners to play that press man, but it seemed like that's what D'Amico was doing more, was letting these corners play aggressive on the outside, play that press man, where it seems like with Wilkes, it's all zone, and quarterbacks are just eating up all that empty space that they're allowing for it. So you get these type of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Keith Murphy says Kirk Cousins the gatekeeper for top 10. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're better than Kirk Cousins, you're a top 10 quarterback. But Kirk Cousins himself, depending on the season, has been a top 10 quarterback. So Randall says, do the Bills fans freak out? Yes, bro. They should have been freaking out for 2 weeks. 2 weeks in a row, they lost arguably their 3 best defensive players for the season. Like, anybody who's been paying attention to the Bills knew that their season was basically over after those injuries. Like, they were toast then, and it's starting to show. Travi86 said, did we trade the better quarterback? Time will tell, man. Time will tell. One-handed Bandit says, I'm just saying, if y'all had Dak, you would have 3 Super Bowls. Just saying. I don't know about 3, but I think we probably would have had 1. I would have taken Dak over Jimmy, no question about it. Justin says Cousins is a better QB that will throw 35 to 45 and give you a chance to win. That's a QB that will give a Super Bowl team hope. Yeah, I mean, he definitely is not afraid. That's for sure. Dave Barclay says our defense looks slow all game. Why? Remember when
they look unprepared?
That, but also remember when we talked about the travel coming into the season? Like, maybe that travel is starting to get to them a little bit. Like, the travel's a real thing right now, and the 49ers chose to go all the way back home after being on the other coast. They went all the way back home and then came all the way back to play Minnesota. Like, that travel at some point can certainly get to you, especially when you're this late in the season and you have nagging injuries. So maybe that's playing into it as well. You talked about playing press man. Also, let's bring that back up for a second. The very first interception, what were they doing? They were playing press man, and then they just stopped doing it. Why? It doesn't make any sense. Sal says Kirk put up almost 400 yards with backups. I hear you, Madden faithful. I hear you. Give me cash as the Niners Super Bowl was versus Dallas. Too much energy. Yeah, I don't think their Super Bowl was versus Dallas, but I'll tell you this. Their arrogance went way up after that Dallas game. Maybe blowing out Dallas was not the best thing for this team. John B says if Brock falls apart this year, Kyle will get Kirk.
As he should.
Yeah, we were talking about it. Kless says, yeah, Cousins would get sacked all over the place with our O-line. We need a major upgrade opposite of Bosa. The D-line isn't 2019 turbo package. Yeah, but, I mean, you're talking about one of the best offense or defensive lines I've seen in recent years. Like, you can't have that every year. They should be good enough. And I'm sorry, Kirk Cousins, when he was getting pressured, was delivering the ball today.
Right.
He was on fire, even when he was getting pressured. You might go back and watch some of those throws he was making. Kakoa says, is Kyle gonna want Kirk more now? Yeah, probably. Kirk Cousins is the 49ers daddy, says Dak Prescott. You know, that's a weird thing to say, Dak. You are not the 49ers daddy. Freddie Rose says, we are spending way too much money on this D-line to not be getting to the quarterback. It's becoming really concerning. Couldn't agree more. Dave Barclay says, I keep getting shunned for cornerback ideas. Anyone else? Here, let me pull up the names that I had. I had 3 names that I really, really liked.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know how other shows, but we've been pretty adamant on corners. We've talked about them pretty much every show. I think both of us agree that that's a position of a big need for the 49ers.
Yeah, but he wants specific names. Okay. Jalen Johnson. These are names that I wrote down. Jalen Johnson. Obviously, everybody's talked about Jalen Johnson. You've heard his name. I think that's like the top of the top. That would be great. Dante Jackson, the speedster from Carolina. He's only around 27 years old. I think he's going to be on the move. Wouldn't mind getting Dante Jackson. And then Darnay Holmes from the Giants. Those are the 3 names that I put up. So there you go. I had written them down somewhere. So hopefully I answered your question, Dave. Those are the 3. Dak Prescott, 49ers got exposed. Your secondary's bad. It ain't good right now. Red and Gold says, we need a DC. He is trash. Refs didn't help much. We can't keep blaming the refs, man. We just can't. I can't remember, at least me, I can't remember a really bad play call from that game. Brock's first interception was defensive holding.
Yeah, I mean, look, we could blame it on the refs, but ultimately there was a multitude of reasons why this game was lost. It wasn't just one play here or there. It was a lot of compounded mistakes. And ultimately, look, unless you got a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes.
No, just say it. You almost said Kirk Cousins. Just say Kirk Cousins.
No. There's not, like, we don't have that room for error. We don't have a quarterback right now in Brock Purdy. For everybody who thinks Brock Purdy is great, I think he's good. He's not a quarterback that can overcome a whole bunch of mistakes, right? And that's what we're learning about Brock Purdy, and that's fine. And I don't think there's a lot of quarterbacks in the league that can overcome a whole bunch of mistakes. We definitely don't have one. Let's just put it that way. So everybody has to play a little bit better.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Brock Purdy is that we were talking about how he was perfect for this team because he wasn't turning the ball over. Well, when you start turning the ball over, all of a sudden that kind of goes out the window. So that's,
and more importantly,
we need to get back to not turning the ball over.
We've only seen him be really, really good when he's playing with a lead, right? So ultimately, these last 2 games, he hasn't been playing with the lead, and he's been okay, but he's not been the reason why we could win a game either. And that's where I don't know, Jesse, I think I've had that answer now. I don't think Brock Purdy is the quarterback that's going to be like, put the team on his shoulder and win a game when everything else is going wrong. I don't think he's that quarterback. I think you've already kind of known that he's not that quarterback. I agree at this point, but I still think that this team is good enough around him that if everything goes 90% the way that it should be, maybe 80% the way it should be, this team could still beat any other team in the league. But it has to go that way. If this game, it went 60% of what it should be, and we don't have a good enough quarterback to overcome that.
I agree. It's Vito, baby. Became a new member. I appreciate you. Dave Barkley is your brother. Good job. Stay up. I appreciate you, Dave. Dave comes back, says, don't you think 2 L's is enough for us to get guys? Well, the trade deadline's only a week away. So they got to go get one. If they're going to go get one, they got to go do it. We're a week away. Still waiting on proof that Boss paid up for the L. He did. I posted a picture. I posted a picture, and then in the chat of that picture that I posted on the, I don't know, on, what is it, the wall or whatever. I said it earlier. My YouTube like wall thing. If you go look at that in there, there's also a link that I sent to a couple people. He did pay up. He definitely paid up. Talking Head says, imagine the noise if Lance was still here. Woo! Yeah, definitely agree with that. Pissed Off Brother Bob says to Neil, I actually agree with you tonight. This is wild.
I think that's 2 weeks in a row. I'm getting that plate, Brother Bob. I'm getting that plate.
Hold on. He's also got a couple other super chats in here, so don't get too excited. Dak Prescott says Kirk Cousins is 49ers daddy. Didn't you already say that, Dak?
Yeah.
Dak, you might have amnesia. Pissed Off Brother Bob says Sal is right. Please get us an elite QB. Brock Purdy is not him. Who's Sal?
Hey, I mean, Brother Bob, duh. All right, like I think all of us gonna want elite quarterback. They're just not falling off the trees, unfortunately.
Brother Bob says you caught that nails, more than $2 super chat. Yeah, that's how I know that. That's how it's funny because you can change your name all you want, but bro, you're not pissed until you start paying more than $2 because you got some things to say. He also says Kyle Shanahan is overrated. We lost to the Browns and Vikes backups. I think that's the other thing that hurts so much is like for as injured as the 49ers were, these teams aren't exactly healthy either, you know? Yeah. So it's not like we were getting their best shot. That is definitely frustrating. So Neil, we made it. We got to the last super chat just now. Oh, I said that and now we're not. Sean McGee says there's maybe 4 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. We also talk about how we need to get one, but they're almost impossible to get. Sean, I don't disagree with that. But if you don't have one, you got to constantly be looking. And the last thing you can do is pay somebody who's not one. As good as Kirk Cousins is, as much as you heard me talking about how good he is, he's borderline top 10 every single season, which is a good quarterback in the league. You also can't pay somebody like that, like they are elite, because it can put you in purgatory. It just can't. So that's the frustrating part. And that's why, you know, Brock Purdy, while he's inexpensive, as long as he can turn it around and get back to who he was, that's great. But when it comes time to pay him, if he's still not that guy and is not that elite player, and I doubt he's going to be that, you can't pay him the big money. You can't pay him just because he's next in line. You got to keep searching until you find one. That's just the way this league works, or get somebody that's cheap and serviceable. So that's where the 49ers are at right now. They're in the cheap and serviceable. Do not pay cheap and serviceable to be elite because they're not that. And It's Vito Baby says, everyone talks about Bosa. We know he got paid and he's just not himself. I just want to know, what about Armstead? I haven't heard his name all year. It's a good point. It's a very, very good point. You know, I want to talk about this too real quick, Sunil. This is kind of an off topic, but it just kind of hit me because he brought up Armstead. So the 49ers this year, interestingly enough, are all over the place on YouTube. Like they just popped up out of nowhere. Yeah. Fred Warner's got his own show. Deebo Samuel's doing a Tuesday show every week with Kay Adams. Eric Armstead's got his post thing that he's doing every single week. I mean, is that possibly a distraction? Like, I mean, we got to look at everything at this point. Like, we got all three of Fred Warner's been playing great. The other two have not lived up to what we expect them to be. Like, is it too much media? Is it too, you know what I mean? This whole next wave of media, whatever, like, is it too much? Like, what do you think?
I mean, it's always going to be something that gets questioned if you're not winning, right? Nobody was worried about it when we were, 5-0. Michael Parsons does it. I think that's just the new thing. Like, these guys are getting smart when it comes to business, and they're striking while the iron's hot, while they still have a name and all that kind of stuff. That's when you start doing these type of things. Honestly, Jesse, if you and me were in the same position, we'd be doing the same thing, right? So I can't blame them for doing whatever they need to do to set their family and their future and all that kind of stuff where they need to be. However, it's fair criticism if you're not playing to your potential. But I don't think it's necessarily the media stuff, Jesse, but I do think they just need to get back to the basics. And I think there is a little bit more trash talk. I think, Debo's doing a lot of interviews, all that kind of stuff. I think they just need a wake up call. And once again, we're talking like this team is 2-5. They're 5-2. They're still number 1 in the NFC West. They're still, only a game behind the Eagles in the NFC, with a game still in hand with them, right? They have the tiebreaker against the Eagles. Detroit just lost as well. So it's like the sky isn't falling. Yes, right now the Eagles are the best team, and there is a gap, but the 49ers, if they beat the Eagles, all of a sudden we're talking about a whole different scenario, right?
Yeah, I get it. I'm not saying it is. It just kind of hit my mind like, oh, wait a minute. A lot of these players are doing a lot of extra stuff outside of, kind of on the YouTube thing. So I thought it was worth bringing up.
Blame Grant. He's doing something with Ray right now. It's Grant's fault.
Yeah. Dave says, how long did I say fire Kyle? You did. And then you took it back, Dave. You walked it back. You can't walk it back. Beyond pissed off, Brother Bob says, I don't think I can even listen to Grant tonight. I'm honestly pissed at how crappy we've looked the last 2 games. Purdy, Moody, need to replace. Definitely trash. Well, listen, I'm going to go watch Grant. It's must-watch TV, especially when things don't go well. So you guys should do the same. We made it through the Super Chats. Thank you all so much for tapping in. Thank you all so much for the support. I will be back tomorrow at noon Eastern with Ryan. We'll see you then. Sunil, thank you for joining me on the post-game show. David was at the game. We'll blame David for the loss. Appreciate y'all. Peace.